Indian classical music is one of the oldest and most complex musical systems in the world. It has a rich history that spans thousands of years and has been shaped by a diverse range of cultural, religious, and social influences. In this article, we will explore the history of Indian classical music, from its origins to the present day. Origins of Indian classical music. The origins of Indian classical music can be traced back to the Vedic period, which lasted from around 1500 to 500 BCE. During this time, the Vedas, a collection of sacred texts, were composed and they contained references to music and musical instruments. However, the earliest known treatise on Indian classical music is the Natya Shastra, written by Bharatha Muni around 200 BCE. During the early centuries of the Common Era, Indian classical music began to develop its own distinct characteristics. This period saw the emergence of the two major schools of Indian classical music, the Hindustani tradition in the north of India and the Carnatic tradition in the south. These two traditions have some similarities, but they also have many differences in terms of the types of instruments used, the style of singing, and the types of compositions that are performed. The medieval period. During the medieval period in India, which lasted from around the 8th to the 18th centuries, Indian classical music continued to evolve and develop. The Islamic conquest of India brought new influences to Indian classical music, as Persian and Arabic musical traditions were merged with the existing Indian musical system. One of the most important figures in the history of Indian classical music during this period was Amir Khusro, a poet, musician, and scholar who lived in the 13th century. Khusro is credited with creating the Qawwali style of music, which combines elements of Indian classical music with Sufi devotional poetry. The Mughal Empire, which ruled over much of India from the 16th to the 19th centuries, also had a significant impact on Indian classical music. The Mughal emperors were patrons of the arts, and they supported many musicians and composers. One of the most famous musicians of this era was Tansen, who served as a court musician to Emperor Akbar and was considered one of the greatest singers of his time. The modern era. The 19th and 20th centuries saw significant changes in Indian classical music, as it began to interact more with Western music and other global musical traditions. The introduction of Western instruments such as the piano and violin had a profound impact on Indian classical music, as did the development of recording technology, which allowed musicians to reach larger audiences than ever before. One of the most influential musicians of this era was Pandit Ravi Shankar, who was one of the first Indian musicians to achieve widespread recognition in the West. Shankar was a sitar player who collaborated with Western musicians such as George Harrison of the Beatles, and he helped to popularize Indian classical music around the world. In recent years, Indian classical music has continued to evolve and adapt to new technological and cultural changes. Many young musicians are exploring new genres and fusing Indian classical music with other musical traditions, creating a vibrant and diverse musical landscape. Conclusion. Indian classical music has a rich and complex history that spans thousands of years. It has been shaped by a wide range of cultural, religious, and social influences, and has undergone significant changes over time. Despite these changes, however, the essence of Indian classical music remains the same, a deep and profound connection between the musician, the audience, and the divine. Whether you are a seasoned listener or a newcomer to Indian classical music, there is no denying the beauty and power of this ancient and timeless art form.